Let's make some noise. Come on.
We're right indeed, Nick Foles. Let's make some noise. Welcome back, everybody, to another fun-filled episode of The Final Word with MattyB here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. And as the thermometers dip, man, it's cold outside. I hate the winter. And luckily, though, for me, my winter will be over in a couple of weeks as I'll be heading down south in early February. But for those of you that are going to be stuck in this thing for the next, 2 months? Man, I'm sorry. I hate the winter. And after January 1st, it can be summertime again for all I care, honestly. But welcome back to a frigid Tuesday night or Monday night episode of the Final Word. And tonight, we're gonna try to break some new ground. We got a couple different things that we're going to try out. Well, not try out, but sort of debut this year. We're moving on here on the network. We're going to start moving into the Eagles offseason. And tonight, you have landed smack dab into an evaluation show. I am going to grade a draft class. You know how I feel about Howie Roseman, my boy. As I would, we would walk hand in hand into eternity together. Tonight, as we begin to sort of pick up the pieces of the Eagles and move forward into 2026, we're going to look back and we're going to evaluate one of his draft classes. It is time to lay down the final verdict of the class of 2023. And we're going to do that here tonight. And then later in the week, we're going to go position group by position group, night after night, sort of talking about the top stories of those position groups, discussing a little bit about what they might need to do going forward into next season. We also got a lot of baseball to get into as we still kind of feel the sting of no Bo Bichette. Mets today officially announced that Bichette will play third for them this year. That means, I guess, Beatty will go to first. I don't know what they do with Vientos, who's a good young player, but the Mets have announced that they will play Bichette primarily at third base. Hall of Fame news in the news. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., the class of 2026 of the Baseball Hall of Fame will be announced. And right now, with about half the vote in, or I should say half the vote publicly released, 50% of the ballots released, Chase Utley is sitting at around 69.5% of the vote. He needs 75 to get in. There's a good chance we may have another Philly going into the Hall of Fame this year. Last year it was Dick Allen, posthumously. This year could be, fingers crossed, Chase Utley. And we'll get into some of the news about the other Phillies that are currently on the ballot as well, because a lot of them are doing pretty well, surprisingly well, honestly. And we'll talk a little bit about that tonight, too. We got our Other Night segment. We're going to do two different things with the Other Night. We're going to continue our profiling of the 2026 NHL draft as we're working our way through those players now. We're also going to start talking. Yeah, it's that time of the year. We're going to do our first Philly Spotlight player of the year tonight. So I'm trying to make it feel like summertime as much as I possibly can on a late January Monday night. Later tonight, we're going to have some post-game opportunities for you here on the network. I'll be back after this show. We won't be doing a twofer because the Flyers are currently just getting started in the second period out in Vegas. But I'll be back later when that game goes final, and I'll be hosting the Clear the Ice program tonight. Flyers, Golden Knights. Then I'll be back on Wednesday to do the Mammoth. And before I yield to Mike Lauro on Friday, that he has the Avalanche, as the Flyers are meandering their way through the desert and the mountain time zone this week, facing some really stout competition. And I said this, I think, yesterday or Saturday after the dreadful homestand, a dreadful January. This really isn't what you do to get better. The Flyers are holding their own tonight, though, holding a 1-0 lead into the second or early parts of the second period. But we'll have some Clear the Ice a little bit later. And your day in Philadelphia sports history. All that stuff tonight, wrapped in a tidy little bow here on the program. Good to see you all. Adam, happy Monday night as well to you. Super Bowl winning MVP. I know I always forget to say that. And I apologize to Nick Foles every time I forget that. the Hurts huggers throw around Super Bowl winning Jalen Hurts all the time. I gotta be better. With that when it comes to Nick Foles. Joe Hale says, "What's up?" Hey, Joe. I can't wait for the Down on the Farm segment to come back soon. Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. I mean, we got to take it baby steps. Honestly, obviously, baby steps. It's January 19th. Happy MLK Day, by the way, everybody. Hope you enjoyed your holiday if that affected you. We got to take baby steps. Down the Farm is a fun segment. I enjoy doing it. At least a lot of work. It's a lot of work to put that thing together every week. But I enjoy doing it, and it educates me, and I hope it educates you as this year. I think, honestly, this year, we are going to really have to pay attention to our minor league players. The Phillies, they have not made many big splash moves this year, this offseason. Yes, we haven't. And I honestly didn't think they would, to be honest with you. Kyle Schwarber was, I thought one splash move, either Kyle Schwarber or Pete Alonso, that kind of thing. I never anticipated a second one. And they did that with Kyle Schwarber. They brought him back. And there was a lot of talk. And, as we get closer to the baseball season, we'll get more into this. That Dave Dombrowski really did talk for one of the first times at length at that end of season press conference back in late October. He talked about, by name, some of the future stars. Crawford, Raconis, Painter, Miller. He mentioned them by name. Otto Kemp. He mentioned them by name. Which, I mean, the guy is not going to sit there in October and say, well, this is how it's going to be, X, Y, and Z. This is who we're targeting in free agency. This is who we're targeting in a trade. Hey, you're not going to do that. But the fact that he mentioned these players by name actually makes me feel pretty good, because I really think that this year, it should be a targeted youth movement. I've said that from the very beginning. Beyond this Bo Bichette stuff, right? I thought it should have been a targeted youth movement. And I believe heading into this season, based on what's happened so far in the offseason, that's probably the way they're going. And that's okay by me. Honestly, it is. It's kind of what I wanted. I would like Luis Arise to come here. I would like another bat, another different established bat to come here. There's a story floating around about potentially bringing in Sterling Marte. Do not want that. I don't know what I'm going to do with old man Marte, but I do think the Phillies could bring in another bat like Luis Arise. I know Jack Fritz is intimating about Eugenio Suarez. I don't want him. I don't want another boomer bust kind of guy who's coming off of a bad year anyway. But the youth movement's going to be something that we really are, I think, going to have to pay attention to. So a long way to say this, that the Down on the Phillies Farm segment that we do every week on the Fightins Final may actually have a lot of relevancy this year. One, in players that we might be seeing in Phillies pinstripes, and two, players that we might be seeing being traded at some point this summer in order to kind of backfill some needs. And also the fact that even though the Phillies haven't made any big splash moves, they've made a lot of lesser moves, a lot of minor league signings, a lot of guys going from one minor league organization to the next. Now, mainly those types of signings are, call them camp bodies, call them filling out a minor league roster, typically on the AAA side. But there's some decent pitching talent that was brought in here that's going to start the season out in Lehigh Valley on the relief side. Now, think what you want, because I actually think they did okay with the bullpen. I thought the bullpen got improved. I do. I still not digging. I would have liked another late inning option, another arm out there. But they really plussed up the middle relief and long relief side of their organization, both at the major league level and at the minor league level. And I think the Phillies anticipate having to use a lot of these guys because of the uncertainty with the rotation to start the season. So we'll probably be talking about some names that are not household names this year, and that's good. That's what I wanted. So yes, a very long way to say I cannot wait for the Down on the Phillies Farm segment either. Ricky says hi. Was just on the phone. Well, Ricky, Joe, please pass it on to Ricky. I hope he's doing well, and get him some Wi-Fi. God damn it! What hospital is he in doesn't have Wi-Fi? Come on, man. Have Ricky Deal talk to his nurse and get some damn Wi-Fi. Needs to listen in. I need the viewership. Hospital be damned. No, seriously, tell Ricky I said hi, honestly. And I hope you relayed our best wishes to him as he's recovering from stomach surgery, I believe. All right, so we got a bunch to get into. Can't wait to break down the class of 2023. Can't wait to talk some Chase Utley, potentially getting into the Hall of Fame, and some other Phillies that are currently on the ballot. I don't know if they're going to get in, but there's some positive numbers with some of these players that I was really surprised with 50% of the vote in. Some of these guys are doing really well. I'm very surprised about that. And we got some bunch of prospects to talk about and some spotlight players. So let's get it going. Let's strap it in, strap it on, strap it up. Keep your head, hands, and feet inside the car at all times. And here we go with our day in Philadelphia sports history, a day that will live in infamy in my life. I remember where I was, what I was doing. I remember the type of day it was. I remember where I was. January 19th, 2003. I'm going to give you a hint for those of you that don't recognize this date off the top of their head. I'll give you two hints. It's Eagles related, and it's the final game the Eagles ever played at Veterans Stadium. And I think I might have I hope you already know the game I'm referring to. It is the absolute, probably as an Eagle fan, the hardest loss I've ever endured as a fan in my 52 plus years on this planet. This game, January 19th, 2003, NFC Championship game, Eagles and Buccaneers, final game at the Vet. Just a game that had no business working out the way it did. The Eagles had no business not moving on into the Super Bowl. Would have been Super Bowl 37, I believe, at this point, 37, to face off against the Oakland Raiders. They had no business not going. They were playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a warm weather team, in a frigid day in Philadelphia. Gray, cold, nasty cold, like today. It was the final game at Veterans Stadium. The Eagles were the better team on paper all season long and on the field all season long, and they came out there. And after the big Brian Mitchell kick return and then the Deuce Staley touchdown run, went away, disappeared, completely vanished in that afternoon. And then it all ended on the Donovan McNabb, Rondé Barber. Was it Rondé or TQ? Rondé Barber interception. And he was running down the sidelines. And with it went our dreams of Super Bowl glory in 2003. And also went the end of the Veterans Stadium for the Eagles. I was in a bar on Frankfurt Avenue. Man, I don't even remember the name of the bar. I don't even think it's there anymore. It was the late game. The Eagles were the late game that day. It was like a 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock start. I got there like an hour before the first game. So I was pretty, I was pretty lit up by the time that game started. And, it was high energy in the beginning, man. As I said, the kick return by Brian Mitchell and the big run by Deuce Staley. But after that, it started sucking the energy right out of the building, right out of the air. And I fell to my knees in the middle of a bar watching Rondé Barber run down the seam or run down the sidelines of Veterans Stadium after that interception by McNabb and sealing the deal for the Buccaneers. Just the hardest, absolute. If people ask me what's the hardest loss I've ever endured as an Eagle fan, it's that championship game loss against the Buccaneers. There was no business. The Eagles had no business not advancing on the Super Bowl 37. None. And it was snatched right out of our hands. So, you know, a lot of fans were feeling bit last week by losing to the 49ers. And this is, again, this is what part of the problem with me and the modern Eagle fan is. They just don't have the they don't have the pain. They don't have the mental pain etched in their system that I do, and a lot of older Eagle fans do, that have actually seen things not work out. A lot of these younger Eagle fans just don't know that pain, and it makes them a softer type of fan base, honestly. But What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And of course, a couple years later, they would finally advance to the Super Bowl, losing to the Patriots. And then finally, Super Bowl 52 happened. But on this day in 2003, the most bitter, gut-punchy loss I've ever endured as an Eagle fan, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC Championship game, final game at Veterans Stadium. And that was your day. I had to sit there and bring that back. I mean, to sit there and have to remember that game, what I don't do for you people. I mean, I could go the rest of my life and never having to think about that game again. But here I am sitting up here having to relive all that again. That was the worst loss in my life. And I've seen some bad ones, man. I've endured some games that, as I said, the Eagles just didn't have no business losing. But that was the one, man. That game, that friggin' game was the one that there was no way they were going to lose. And they did. It was just terrible. So there you go. That was your day in Philadelphia sports history. Brought to you by the good folks here at the It's a Wrap Sports Network, makers of such programming as the Pittsburgh Sports Tonight show. Seen earlier tonight, the Steel City boys are continuing their coverage, even though the Steel City pre- and post-game has ended. But they will continue their coverage into the offseason and beyond with the Pittsburgh Sports Tonight, also the Pittsburgh Sports Desk, and then, of course, our Gridiron Weekly program as well. So, they're going to branch out a little bit. Sports Tonight is going to go to 3 nights starting next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 7 p.m. We're talking about doing something with them, or not me, but they're talking about doing something for the Pirates this spring. I don't know what the hell you do with the Pirates. I mean, if they're going to actually want to get into doing post-game stuff with the Pirates, this is going to be a social experiment for me. Of course, I am in charge of the network, right? It's a Wrap Sports is mine. Everything that happens on this network goes with my approval. Nothing happens on this network without me knowing about it. Let's put it to you that way. And if we decide to go ahead and do a post-game show for the Pirates, I'm fine with that. They can do that. They better. But under one stipulation, they got to do every game. Every game. All 162. Because they're not going to make the playoffs. All 162 games of a Pittsburgh Pirates season has to be covered here on this network. And I want to watch the de-evolution of John as he goes from late March to late September doing Pirates postgame. That's something I want to see, track, and observe and report on as a social experiment here on the network. But no, they are more than welcome to do that. Listen, you guys don't know the pain. We've been lucky on the Fightins final. Let me where's some wood out here. Let me knock on some wood. We've been lucky on the Fightins final. We haven't endured a season of non-playoff baseball on the final. We haven't. We jumped in 22. Out of nowhere, they made it to the World Series. Then obviously 23, 24, and 25. Every season we've done the show has ended in postseason berths, right? So basically relevant baseball all year long. Even if they're in losing streaks, they still pull themselves out. And it's relevant baseball all year long. Phillies fans are more than capable of dealing with bad baseball. We know all about bad baseball. I'm not going to sit here and say that we're not used to that, but we're not used to bad baseball on the Fightins final. We're not. We're just not. It's been literally postseason every year we've done it. And going into the project back in the EOP days when I started it, Al was like, listen, you sure you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, man, let's do it. And he said the same thing. He's like, listen, do one show, at the end of the series, do like a 3-game series and just do one post game, kind of wrap up the whole series. Yeah. Nah, I don't want to do that. I want to do 162 game post games. I want to do 162 post games. All right, man. Now I knew what I was opening myself up for, because back in them days, it was just me. I did the entire 22 season on my own. I let in some other people at the end to help me out in the postseason, but it was just me who did the whole season on my own. And thank God we had relevant baseball all year, because I was prepared to talk about a bad baseball team as we got through the season, but it didn't happen that way. And I don't think it's going to happen in 2026. I honestly don't. I think the Phillies are still a playoff team, and I'll get a little bit more into that a bit later on in the show. But if they want to do a Pirates post-game show, I am 100% down for that. But they're going to do every game, every stinking game they're going to do, and I just want to see how that de-evolves as we move through the season, so that their role is going to expand in different ways here. Even though the football season is over, just as in watching the NHL Network, there was a goalie fight between the Sharks and the Panthers. Yeah, Bobrovsky was duking it out with the Shark goalie. I saw that. I think it's stupid. Goalie fights are stupid. They have too many pads on, man. And Bobrovsky was throwing punches with his mask still on. So, hey, it's kind of stupid. Wow, the Bills have fired the Eagles defensive coordinator Sean McDermott, who grew up in Delaware Valley after. Yeah, I mean, that was the news that came out this morning. Sean McDermott out in Buffalo. That's 10, to include the two head coaches that got fired in season, Brian Daboll and Callahan. That's 10 head coaches that have lost their jobs in the NFL in 2025. Is that like a record? That's got to be up there, man. That's got to be way up there. I haven't researched that, but that's got to be one of the record type situation. It's amazing. That's almost a third of that is a third of the league lost their job this offseason. Absolutely amazing. A lot of programs in Buffalo, obviously, heading into a new stadium next year. Still in a position to be a Super Bowl contender if they can get Josh Allen some weapons. And, it's amazing. But it was the right move. It was I actually support every one of the firings. I think they're all justified. Every single team that decided to move on from their head coach were justified firings. How Aaron Glenn survived in New York with the Jets, I don't know, but every one of those firings of this season were justified. It would have been nice to have one more coming out of Philadelphia, but I guess I'll have to wait another year for that. But all justified firings, but just an amazing number of 10. 10 coaches, man, lost their job in 2025. Open up some avenues for some new people, man. But yeah. All right, so let's get into some. Let's talk Eagles. Let's talk Eagles offseason. Let's get into, instead of dwelling upon the A.J. Brown drama, and now the reports are coming out that he has been requesting trades all season long. As early as week 3, he requested a trade allegedly to get out of here. Let's move past that for one night. Let's put that crap down for one night. Let's turn off the soap opera for one night. And let's actually talk some football, right? We are into the offseason, like it or not. We're down to the Final Four. You got the championship game going on tonight in college football. It's coming to an end. So it's never too early to start looking ahead at what the Eagles are going to have to start to look at going into 2026. And one of those big contributing factors, one of the rivers that run into the ocean of the Eagles, is their draft classes, right? Is how they do every spring in the draft. And I think in football, and we saw it a lot this year. And again, I posed this question last night, and I'll pose it again. Was the parity that occurred in the NFL in 2025 this year, was it an anomaly? Is the old guard going to return in 26? Was this sort of a slap in the face for some of those perennial teams like the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Lions, to kind of get their act together and start, maybe take it off autopilot and be like, hey, listen, we really got to clamp down here because there's some young and up-and-coming teams nipping at our heels? Or was it just a glitch in the matrix and just happened to be one of those years, right? I like to lean on the side of this might be the new norm, and I like it. I ain't gonna lie to you. I like the fact that you got who you got in the AFC and NFC championship games this year. I like that you got the Patriots and Broncos and the Seahawks and the Rams. They're great stories, all 4 of those teams. Yeah, and they have the drama around the Broncos with losing Bo Nix. And do they have a potential Nick Foles situation going on in Denver? There's a backup. Does Stidham rise to the occasion and etch his name into backup quarterback lore starting at the AFC Championship game? Probably won't, but Does he? Drake May has had an MVP type season. Does he lead the Patriots back to a Super Bowl to put to bed and rest all the Tom Brady stuff? As he's going to take over as the new sheriff in town. In the NFC, Sam Darnold. What the hell is Sam Darnold doing in the NFC Championship game? But he's got an opportunity to step forward and tell the Jets, the Panthers, the Vikings, everybody else that gave up on him, screw you. I'm a Super Bowl champion. And probably an MVP of the Super Bowl, too. Him and Jalen Hurts can hang out in the same club. And you got the Rams, who might be the most veteran of these teams when it comes to playoff contention. Does Matt Stafford find his way, who had himself an MVP type season? Do they find their way back to the Super Bowl and another opportunity at Super Bowl glory? I love it. I love the storylines, man. I honestly do. And in order to kind of keep up with all this, you got to draft well. And we don't draft well notoriously here in Philadelphia. I know with some of the big, sexy names, Jalen Carter, Devontae Smith, people are losing sight of the fact that Howie Roseman is still a mid-drafter. He is. He hits every now and again. And tonight, we're going to provide a final grade on the class of 2023. Yeah, I'm not grading the class of 25 tonight. I'm not grading the class of 24. I give each draft class 3 years of NFL experience before I throw down any kind of grade on them. And like these idiots that grade Howie Roseman literally coming out of the draft on that draft class. Oh, you got an A. How the hell do you know that? How do you know that? The guy hasn't played a game in the NFL. You're going to give him a letter grade? How do you know that? So I wait 3 years. And tonight, it's the class of 2023's turn to get evaluated by me. And this is our first step in the Eagle offseason plan. And it starts tonight. So without further ado, let's get to it. Does Sean McDermott become an offensive coordinator? Now, he probably won't. He's a defensive guy. He's got a defensive background. I don't know. Maybe wouldn't mind making him the head coach. Yeah, Star Wars is right. He was a defensive guy. 10-0 Indiana at half. All right. Joe Hale's reporting on the national championship game. How you doing, Jorge? What's going on, man? What's going on with you tonight? All right, let's get into the class 23 because I've been waiting for this. Let's have some fun with this. So how I do it, this is, of course, my system, my scale, and my thing, all right? I just want to lay down some foundational ground rules on how this happens. So since 2013, I've been tracking every player the Eagles have drafted, and I've been following their success, failure, whatever it was throughout time and history. Now, I know there's an argument to be made that Howie Roseman has been drafting since about 2013 with this team. A lot of people are going to say that Lane Johnson was Howie Roseman's pick. A lot of people are going to say Zach Ertz was a Howie Roseman pick. Some will even go out on a limb and say Jason Kelce was a Howie Roseman pick. They weren't. All right. To think that Howie Roseman had anything to say with an Andy Reid draft or even a Chip Kelly draft is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. All right. I start my Howie Roseman tracking in 2016. 2016, I think, is the first year that you can say Howie Roseman had complete control over the draft process for the Philadelphia Eagles. So we look at Howie basically from 2016 up through till today on how we kind of grade him. And we've graded his drafts over the years up to this point, up to the class of 2023. And so far, well, I'm not going to give you what he's done so far, but I'll talk about that at the end of our little evaluation session. But let's talk since 2013. Since 2013, the Philadelphia Eagles have had 13 drafts. You got one coming up here in April, so that'd be 14. But they have had 13 drafts since 2013. 97 players have been taken in those drafts by the Eagles. Through my system, which is a 2-grade system, I don't give letter grades. I don't give A, B, C. I am kind of a teacher, but this is not school, so we're not doing that. We give 2 grades. We give 3 grades here. Not 2, but 3. We give a B for a bust, an H for a hit, and a question mark for Well, a question mark, because we don't know yet. So it's BH question mark, not 80, 90, 70, 60, 50. None of that. Not A, B, C, D. No, it's a B, a H, or a question mark. That's how we evaluate here on this show. And since 2013 up through 2025, this is everybody, by the way, the Eagles have had 55 busts, 28 hits, and 14 players that are still, the verdict is still out on. So that's not really that good. It's not good at all, really. It's less than 50%, right? But tonight, and just a little bit more about this thing, that we have currently 7 of the 13 draft picks from those drafts still on the team. 33 picks in total are still currently on the modern-day Eagle roster that have been selected since 2013. So, but that's just sort of an overview. We're going to talk Howie specific here in a minute. But let's get into the class of 2013, shall we? Big year 2023. A big year 2023. Eagles entered that draft with 2 first-round picks. 2 of them. And they were coming off of a Super Bowl. A Super Bowl appearance in 22. Of course, that was the how they got that second first-round pick was that draft day in 22 trade with the Saints that netted the Saints' first-round pick in 23. Now, the Saints in 23 or 22 were dreadful. And there was a time towards the end of the season that the Saints were trending to about a top 3 pick. It was looking that way. They were that bad, but they got hot at the end to include a win over the Eagles. And they ended up settling with the number 9 pick overall. So the Eagles had the Saints pick at 9. Now, as I mentioned, coming off of a Super Bowl appearance in 2022, the Eagles are now picking with the 9th overall pick in the draft, which is an amazing feat by Howie Roseman. I got to give credit where credit's due. You got to give it to him. And with that pick, 9th overall in the 2023 Eagles draft, or NFL draft, the Eagles selected Jalen Carter, defensive tackle from the University of Georgia. Now, as we look at Jalen Carter's first 3 years, I'm not going to sit here and say he was anything but a massive hit at 9 overall. You got complete value from him at that pick. Matter of fact, he's got top. I mean, I'm not going to say you redraft 2023 and you're going to draft Jalen Carter first. But as far as of what he's provided the Eagles, it's been off the chain. No question a hit. No doubt a hit. 100%. Now, there's obviously some character issues with him. And I think what the Eagles want to see from Jalen Carter going forward is more of a mental change in him, more of a mature, change in him. But as far as his play on the field, at times he becomes simply dominant. And it doesn't matter if you triple team him, double team him, whatever. It doesn't seem to matter as he overtakes everything. So a massive hit for Howie Roseman at 9 overall in the first round of the 2023 draft with Jalen Carter. Now, the next pick the Eagles had, which was also in the first round, was their own pick, which ended up being 30 that year. Now, this to me, I remember when it happened, I was scratching my head then, and I'm scratching my head 3 years later. The Eagles selected with the 30th overall pick that year, Nolan Smith, the linebacker from Georgia. Now, I understand where we were headed with this. I get the whole Georgia connection. I get drafting from how we obviously had unlocked the code of trying to get known players. And I understand Georgia was a very athletic defense that year. And at one point where we had all them, and we ended up adding Ringo later in that draft. I mean, it was like we were reassembling the Georgia defense. And then you had Jordan Davis the year before that. So it was getting kind of ridiculous with the Georgia players. But Nolan Smith to me was a reach at 30. And I know the homers justified it by saying, well, it's a back-end first-round pick. It's almost like a second-round pick. No, it's not. It's a first-round pick. I don't care if it's back of the first round. It's a first-round pick. You had a lot of players you could have selected there. Joey Porter Jr., who eventually went to the Pittsburgh Steelers as a cornerback, was there at 30, right? And you didn't go his way. Imagine we drafted him. We're not talking defensive backfield problems, at least at cornerback right now. But we went with Nolan Smith. And again, I'm not saying it was the wrong decision or a wrong pivot move. They thought that was the biggest talent. There were some questions about his size coming out and his injury situation. Nolan Smith for 3 years has been a roller coaster. He has been essentially what the Eagles have been for the last 3 years, up and down, inconsistent as hell. When he can hit stretches of dominance, and then he hits stretches of irrelevance. He gets lost out there at times. He gets sucked up at times, and at times he comes out like gangbusters. I think for me with Nolan Smith, it boils down to first-round talent. Has he produced as a first-round talent? And not 30th overall, a first-round talent. And I think he hasn't. I don't think he has produced as a first-round talent in his first 3 years in the NFL. So I'm giving Nolan Smith and Howie Roseman a B on this one. This is a bust to me. This is a bust as a 30th overall pick in the first round of 2023 and an NFL draft. So, again, I expected a lot more from Nolan Smith. We all expected a lot more from Nolan Smith. It hasn't quite hit yet. We don't even know where to play him. Is he an edge guy? He's not that good against pass coverage. He's better off the edge, but he's not that good at it. He's a bust at 30. Now, the Eagles did not have a second-round pick that year. They had 2 third-round picks, and they actually had 2 back-to-back picks in the third round at 65 and 66. So at 65, the Eagles took guard Tyler Steen from the University of Alabama. Keeping the SEC thing happening, they went with Tyler Steen. Now, Tyler Steen was a big name this year. With all the offensive line problems, the ups and downs with the line, the injury problems with the line, the inconsistencies with the line, Tyler Steen was asked to come in and provide some stability to that line. He did not. He was about as inconsistent as the rest of them were. And that's been pretty much Tyler Steen his entire career as an Eagle. They kept waiting for him. They kid gloved him. They took it slow with him. And they gave him his big first taste of it this year. And it just has not worked. He's not good. And as a third round talent, I wanted more from him. He as well is a bust for me in the third round of the 2023 NFL draft. So 2 busts and 1 hit so far for Howie in 2023. Then at 66, the Eagles went ahead and selected safety from Illinois, Sidney Brown. Do I got to spend time really discussing why I don't think Sidney Brown was a hit? I at times forgot Sidney Brown was still on this football team this year. When I went to start preparing this, I had to go back and look and make sure he was still on the active roster. He is. So I want to hear anybody out there try to argue with me that as a third round draft pick, you believe Sidney Brown's a hit. He's not. It's time to level down and give him the final grade he deserves, which is a big old B, a bust. The Eagles then picked in the 4th round, 105th overall. They took a cornerback from Georgia. By the way, Sidney Brown was from Illinois. So they went back to the SEC for a cornerback by the name of Keely Ringo. I'm going to spend less time talking about Keely Ringo than I did about Sidney Brown. All right. I knew he was still on the active roster because he's been the biggest non-starter of a conversation for the Eagles over the last 3 years. His name was thrown out almost religiously last offseason when the Eagles were making their decisions to move off of Slay, move off of CJ, BJ, KJ, DJ. And the name Keely Ringo came up religiously about the person that was going to step up and assume a starter's role in either a cornerback or a safety role. He's done neither. He is actually when he's out there, we are a worse football team. He's relegated to special teams play. I believe so is Sidney Brown. But that's not what you draft somebody in the 4th round for, to be a special teamer. I would say 5th round and beyond is where you kind of look at special teams. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm being too hard on him. But there's no way you're going to talk me out of the fact that Keely Ringo is a bust in the 4th round. No 5th round picks. The next pick the Eagles had was in the 6th round, 188th overall. They took a quarterback out of the University of Arizona by the name of Tanner McKee. Now, Tanner McKee, of course, is a lightning rod name around these parts when it comes to the Jalen Hurts conversation. But that's not what we're here to discuss. I'm not here to discuss Tanner McKee's heir apparentness to Jalen Hurts. I'm here to discuss that you got from a 6th round pick, you got a player that hung around on an NFL roster for 3 years and worked his way up to backup quarterback in 2 of those 3 years. And he's a very competent backup. And I believe he's going to be part of some sort of trade package at some point this year that someone's going to want. I think it's an absolute hit, even though he hasn't really performed at this level. But the fact that he's hung around on the team for the last 3 years as a 6th round quarterback says a lot about Tanner McKee. Says a lot about what they think of Tanner McKee. And I know, again, the conversation about Jalen Hurts and Tanner McKee is a lightning rod. It's a charged one. I don't have the strength for it tonight. But the bottom line is Tanner McKee's a hit in the 6th round. He's an absolute hit. It's an absolute hit. So I'm going to give the hit there. And then the final pick in that draft that year was in the 7th round at 249, defensive tackle out of Texas, Moro Ojomo. And again, as a 7th round value pick, the fact that he has been a constant member of the defensive line rotation for the last 2 years, it says a lot about Moro Ojomo. And also says a lot about Howie Roseman's late round drafting ability to come up with hits in the 6th round and a hit in the 7th round. So Moro Ojomo, who has been one of the more stalwart players contributing on that defensive line rotation, it's obviously a hit for me. So that's a hit. So let's recap. I got 1, 2, 3 hits and 1, 2, 3. I got 3 hits and I got 4 busts. So I guess if we're doing some fuzzy math, you're a little bit lower than 50%, or I don't know, 45, 46% with the class of 2023. The bad problem about the class of 2023 is the picks, those mid-round picks, right? The Steen, Brown, and Ringo picks. The miss on those 3 back-to-back-to-back. That's tough. That's tough to survive. And we saw that. We felt that this year. And to say we didn't, that's ridiculous, because we were looking for more out of Tyler Steen. We're looking for more out of Nolan Smith. You were looking for something out of Keely Ringo and something out of Sidney Brown, and you got none of it. You've got none of it. And if you had to rank these individuals as like who had the best season, I guess Nolan Smith would be up there as the best of the worst. Tyler Steen's second. And then Brown and Ringo, I guess you would rank them that way. But the bust on basically, you hit with Carter and then you bust until you get down to the 6th round. That's not good. Howie needs to be better with that. And we felt that this year with the class of 2023. So 3 hits and 4 busts. Now let's go down to Howie's overall grade. And I've been keeping track of this. So since 2016, again, as I've said, that's 10 drafts, 76 players. Howie has had complete autonomy on selecting. 5 out of 10 first-round draft picks still remain with the team. 30 overall picks still are with the Eagles from 2016 on. That's about 39.4% of the players on this football team are part of Howie's draft classes. So far through these 10 drafts, Howie has busted on 40 players, which is over half, 52.6. He's hit on only 22 of them for 28.9%, and we still have 14 players that we don't know their final verdict yet. And that's about 18.4%. So Howie is trending in the wrong direction when it comes to drafting. Over 50% of his players are busts so far. But Howie's a great drafter, apparently. So there's the books on the class of 2023. 3 hits and 4 busts. And, of course, next year we'll resume with the class of 2024, as we'll look at the Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalix Hunt, Will Shipley, Anais Smith, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Trevor Keegan, who never played a game for the Eagles, or he got dropped last year, Johnny Wilson, and the Dylan McMahon group. We'll look at the class of 24. So far, there's 3 busts on that group. I've already given out 3 permanent grades to the class of 2024. 3 of them are busts. Guess which ones? But that'll have to wait till next year. So there you have it. Howie Roseman's class of 2023 draft report. 3 hits and 4 busts. and a really bad between, the back end of the first round all the way up to the sixth round. Just not good. And I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed giving that to you here on the show tonight. Let's see, where am I at? Good Lord. I miss the past, brother. Always cry about memories. Where are we at here? I'm way behind on this. Nothing much. It's repeating stream. I'm confused, brother. It says 2023. Yes, I am doing the title of the show is the draft class grades of 2023. Philadelphia cream cheese is the best. And cream horns. The best. Okay, wow. I give Jeremiah Trotta a junior an F. Well, not yet. Star Wars. He's got one more year. We'll talk about him next year. One more year about Trot. All right. We I'm not jumping the gun on him. He gets his 3 years. They all get 3 years before we give him a final grade. For 2025, Jeremiah was a bust. No, he's not. He's not a bust till he hits 3 years. That's. I think that's a very fair way to do this. Because I can say the same thing about Jihad Campbell this year. He's a bust, but I'm not going to say that because he gets 2 more years. Sidney Brown's twin brother Chase went 5th round that year. Clearly took the wrong brother. And what were they doing drafting anybody by the name of Brown anyway? Wasn't it this similar situation with the cornerback out of Oregon back in 2017? The one who tore out his ACL or something? Eagles keep A.J. Brown. We'll see, little G. We'll see. For 24. Do you know Haley White? I do not. Cooper DeJean was a hit. Again, he is, but I'm not talking class 24 till next year. Puka Nacua went in the 5th round. He did. But when I look back at the class of 23, and I look at the Nolan Smith pick at 30, and I see Joey Porter Jr. taking about, 3 picks later? This is the first round, or the first pick in the second round. And I look back and I say, you know what? And I remember that. And I remember thinking, we need a cornerback. Why are we not taking a cornerback? I just really wish they would have done that. We would not be talking about our DBs right now. We would have a lockdown 1 and 2 corner. It would be, I just think they'll be definitely missed with Smith. I do. She is making YouTube, brother. I have no idea. I have no idea who that is. All right. So there you go. There's my final draft grades of the class of 2023. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And that was brought to you by the Birds Blast, the quintessential Eagle pregame show entertainment. We will be back with our final episode of the Birds Blast season 2025 here on the Thursday after the Super Bowl. And me and Kyle will wrap everything up. And we'll actually probably talk a little bit about the draft class and the upcoming draft class that the Eagles will be involved in. And maybe we'll dive a little bit into the schedule for next year. We'll put a pretty little bow. I'll get Kyle's takes on the 49er game. I'm going to give it 3 weeks before I have to talk to him about it. So we'll have one more episode, and then we'll wrap that up on the Thursday after the Super Bowl. So make sure you guys are back for that. Good night, my man. Have a good night. But yeah. So all right, let's take a pause here. Let's get into the of the night segment because I got 2 things to do in the of the night segment. And remind everybody that I think it's 1-1 now, Flyers Knights, as they head into the second intermission. So I'll be back at the end of that game to give you the clear of the ice. But let's get into the of the night segment tonight here on the show. Sorry about that. All right. The of the night. Tonight, we're doing a twofer of the night. We're going to talk some NHL draft prospect, and we're also going to get into our first Philly Spotlight player of 2026 as we're getting that much closer to the start of the season. 20 days, maybe less than 20 days before spring training really starts. Let's start with our draft prospect of the night. He is Carson Karels, the left-handed defenseman currently playing for the Prince George Cougars of the Western Hockey League. A 6'2", 194-pound left-handed defenseman. He's got defensive awareness, two-way skill, strong physique, and high-end hockey sense, making him one of the top defensive prospects in this year's draft class. He is a monster one, Scout said. Carlos plays the offensive game like a skilled forward, but then can switch on a dime and fluidly convert to a lockdown defender. Sign me up if that's true. If that works, if that can translate, and that's the big story here, of course, is always about translating to the next level. But if that can translate at the next level, this level, the NHL level, well, sign me the hell up, man, because we are struggling right now on our blue line. There's cracks all over that line. Last night we talked Oliver Bonk as we did our final flyer prospect of the year, unless of course they add any more. And Bonk is probably going to see time here soon. This blue line is just terrible with the Flyers. There's been massive issues along it, well, for multiple years, not just this year. But I don't know if the Flyers are going. He's a first-round talent. He's probably a top 10 talent, actually, this guy. I don't think the Flyers are going defense in the top. They cannot. They have to go offense. The Flyers are so deprived. They're worse offensively than they are defensively. So he will not be around by the time the Flyers get to any kind of position in the back end of the second round. So he's probably not going to be a Flyer, but, you know, he sort of grays out to somebody you would definitely want to have on your hockey team, but it's just not a luxury we can afford right now, as we have problems offensively too. I don't know. Do you think the offensive problems are worse than the defensive problems? Or are they about the same? It's a great question. But Carson Karels, the left-hand defenseman from the Prince George Cougar of the Western Hockey League, is our 2026 NHL draft prospect here on the of the night segment on the final word. And now let's go to our second part of this, and that is our Phillies Spotlight Player of the Night, as we are talking 2026 Phillies baseball. And let's talk about one of the new Phillies, Adolis Garcia, free agent acquisition from the Texas Rangers. There's his stat line from 2025, 135 games, a stellar 227 batting average, did have 115 hits, 19 home runs, 75 RBIs, scored 58 runs, an OBP of 271, slugging percentage of 394, and OPS, a terrible 665 OPS, did steal 13 bases, showing a little speed on the base pass. Little StatCast metrics of his exit velo, hard hitting percentages and all that down there. I'm not going to get into all that, but I will discuss the splits here. He was 237 against right-handed pitching, 14 homers and 56 RBIs, and a very notable difference against left-handers. 199, 5 homers, and only 19 RBIs. So we got ourselves Brandon Marsh, essentially, another player who's going to come here and can whack the stick against right-handers and cannot hit left-handed pitching. Is it some sort of, are we starting a club here in Philadelphia when it comes to these types of players? The Phillies are betting on him to sort of regain his 2023 prowess, where he was an all-star. This was one of those high-risk, or I should say high-risk, low-risk, high-reward moves by the Phillies. And the heir apparent, apparently, Nick Castellanos, who, of course, is still on this baseball team. But in light of everything that has happened this offseason, or I should say has not happened, this pick is infuriating. This acquisition is really infuriating to me. If this is the best offensive improvement we get, that's not good. I'm sorry. I don't know if he's going to have himself that much of a reclamation year. I really don't. Maybe hitting in the smaller bandbox of Citizen Bank Park versus out there in Arlington is going to be better for him. But it seems to me like we have another home run or bust type of guy on our hands. The Phillies are hoping he regains his power from 2023. I don't want his power. I want his contact ability. I just want players to hit the damn ball and get on base. All right. I don't care about home runs anymore. I'm so sick and tired of home runs. I want players that can get on base. I don't know if this is the guy. And of course, with the fact that we haven't made any other moves, well, he better be the guy, because we're going to ask him to be that guy. Where do you bat him in the lineup? That's a great question. I don't know if this lineup is complete. I don't think it is. It shouldn't be. We still got some situations going on with Alec Bohm and Nick Castellanos. Why are they still here? I think he projects out to be a 6. I don't want him batting 6, but in this lineup, he might have to bat 6. He might be the protection for JT Realmuto, which I've gone to bed with better thoughts, right? Maybe in a more balanced attack, he's a 7. In a more structured lineup, he's a 7. Here, he's going to ask to be part of that middle part of that. He's going to be asked to be a heavy part of that middle part of the lineup. Can he do it? I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't freaking know. But he's here, and he is our first Philly Spotlight player of 2026. Adios, is that how you say his name? Garcia, our free agent pickup from the Texas Rangers. And again, I've gone to bed with better thoughts. I honestly have. But it's good that we're off and running with the Spotlight players. That means we've turned the page and we're moving deeper into the offseason, closer to seeing the shots of the tiki bar out there in left field of Baycare, was it? They don't call it Jack Russell Stadium anymore, do they? No, they don't. Yeah. Baycare Park out there in Clearwater and Frenchie's Tiki Bar, man. We're one day closer to seeing that again. Cannot wait. Of course, I was watching it all year while watching Thrashers games, but, it's got a different air to it when the Phillies are in town. So there you have it. There's our NHL draft prospect of the night and our Phillies Spotlight player of the night. And those were brought to you by the It's a Wrap Sports Network and our Friday night Philly Frenzy show with our boy Big Al at the helm. Every Friday night at 9 o'clock, Big Al will take you through his Philadelphia Sports Week and give you what he thinks. So make sure you're tuned in every Friday at 9 p.m. for the Philly Friday Frenzy here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. Mickey Delaney says, hey everyone. Hey, Mickey, how are you? We're about to the end of this show tonight, but remember, in about 17 minutes and 43 seconds, I'll be back for Clear the Ice as the Flyers and Golden Knights are rocking out in Vegas right now. It's 1-1 as we get into the third period. So I'll be back a little bit later on to do Clear the Ice. But before I say goodnight tonight, I do want to hit on the Hall of Fame situation currently. So tomorrow at 6 o'clock, the NHL, or not the NHL, but the MLB or the MLB Network. I get so pissed off when people call it the MLB Baseball Hall of Fame. It's not the MLB Baseball Hall of Fame, just like it's not the NFL Football Hall of Fame. It's the Baseball Hall of Fame, and it's the Football Hall of Fame. These are completely unaffiliated facilities to recognize baseball and football and hockey and basketball talent from around the world, regardless of what league they played in. And but tomorrow, and of course the MLB is a huge part of it. It's the most of it. But tomorrow the class of 2026 will be revealed for Major League Baseball and their Hall of Fame class. And Chase Utley currently is one of the headlining names that is making a lot of traction in the vote. A graphic was put out today with about 51% of the public vote counted. So about half of the vote counted. Chase Utley is sitting at 67.9% of the vote. You need 75 to get in. Could this actually happen? Could Chase Utley actually get in to the Baseball Hall of Fame? Could we actually have a number retirement ceremony on top of everything else that is going to be cool with Philadelphia baseball this year, on top of the All-Star game, on top of the Futures game, the draft, the World Baseball Classic, on top of all of that, America's 250th birthday, on top of all that, are we going to have a number retirement ceremony at Citizens Bank Park? Is 26 going to hang out there in Ashburn Alley next to 20? All right, next to 1? Next to 36, are they going to actually have 26 out there? I hope so. I really, really do. And of course, having some ties to the Cooperstown area that I do, I work there all summer. I work up there, so I will definitely make sure the It's a Wrap Sports Network is covering that event live, and that'll be fun. That'll be very fun. But Chase Utley, 67.9% of the vote counted, of 50% of the vote counted. So tomorrow at 6 o'clock, the announcement will be made officially, and MLB will have it. The MLB Network will have it. How are the other Phillies that are on the ballot doing so far with 50% of the vote counted? Bobby Abreu's got 39.1%. Cole Hamels, amazingly, how does this happen? 31.2% of 50% of the ballots have gone to Cole Hamels getting into the Hall of Fame. Simply stunning. Jimmy Rollins, only 24.7. That's stunning for a couple different ways. Jimmy's getting in. He's not going to get in this year. I would have loved to have both Jimmy and Chase get in together. But that's all right. We'll spread them out. We'll get more. One a year for the next 3-4 years. I'm down with that. Jimmy will get in, but it ain't looking like it's going to happen this year. Hunter Pence, I don't really claim him, but it's got 0.5% of the vote. And Howie Kendrick, and I really don't claim him, stands at 0% of the vote. So the big news is we could have ourselves a Hall of Fame second baseman, Chase Utley. 67.9% of the vote that's been released of 50% of the ballots. 50% of the ballots have been counted. And that number has been released. And Chase Utley has already garnered 67.9% of the vote. It's looking good that Chase Utley is going to find his way into Cooperstown tomorrow. And collectively, as Phillies fans around the world, we need to go to bed praying good thoughts to get Utley into the Hall of Fame. And again, as I said, Rollins not looking like he's going to, but he'll get enough votes to stay on the ballot, and we'll push hard for him in 2027 to get in. But it's looking good for Chase Utley to find his way into Cooperstown. And tomorrow, hopefully when I come on the air at 9:00, we'll be talking about Hall of Fame second baseman Chase Utley. And of course, we'll go in. Now, I'm not going to go out and say, he did play 4 years 3 years with the Dodgers, I think it was, right? 3 years, 2.5 seasons. He would not do that, right? He wouldn't do that to us. Throw away 13 years as a Philly and go in as a Dodger. Nah, I ain't doing that to us. But here's good luck to Chase Utley as he hopefully is in Cooperstown at this time tomorrow. So keep our fingers crossed, everybody. 67.9% of the vote of 50% of the ballots released. It's looking good. It's looking real good. So here's the Chase Utley and Cole Hamels, man. Cole friggin' Hamels with 31% on his first ballot out of 50%. I mean, that's impressive, man. Bobby Abreu's 39%. That's pretty good. Jimmy's 24 sucks. How does Jimmy Rollins have less than Cole Hamels? Amazing. But one step at a time, folks. Let's go to our favorite segment of the night. Yeah, it's MattyB's card review segment. Last night we did a card from 1991. What was that, Mike Lieberthal? Yeah, Mike Lieberthal's draft card from 91. Tonight we're staying in the 90s. We're going back to 1990, actually, and we're going to do a classic card. We're going to do one of the all-time greats, a Hall of Famer of his own right. So in 1990, Upper Deck, which was at that time still a very prominent card manufacturer, produced a series of cards within their 1990 set that recognized baseball's heroes. Was that? Yeah, I saw it. That was pretty brutal. Yeah, I saw it. It ain't my boy. Can't stand that guy, man. Biggest friggin'. I think he's a hypnotist, man. He's you think I'm great? Put me on your Olympic team. Sign me to an 8-year, $30,000 million contract. I mean, I don't know how Travis Sanheim. I don't know how he collects a check. I really don't. But yeah, I saw that. It was a pretty brutal play. Anyway, in 1990, Upper Deck did a series of cards called Baseball Heroes. And they released I think they took 5 or 6 players from the yesteryear. And actually, I don't think he was yesteryear at that time, but they went back through, some of the annals of baseball's greats. And they did a series of cards, it was 8 of them. So for one player would have 8 cards released in that set. Another player would have 8 cards. It was a series of cards for that player. called Baseball Heroes. And tonight's one of those cards. It's, I mean, an all-time great. You know, if you're talking about a guy that needs to show up for the playoffs, boy, could we not use him right now on our team. The man that went by simply the name Mr. October for a reason is our card tonight. The 1990 Baseball Heroes, number 3 of 8 of Reggie Jackson in the Upper Deck series that year. And there it is right there. Again, what can I say about Reggie? I actually own a Reggie Jackson Oakland A jersey, number 9, back in the day, man, when he wore 9. Long before his days with Billy Martin and the Yankees and the Angels and all that, and his return visit to the A's. I mean, when he first came out, old number 9. Simply one of the best clutch hitters that the game has ever seen. Of course, nicknamed Mr. October for that reason. And it was because of his feats in 1977 in the 77 World Series. So this was, as I said, this was card number 3 of 8 of a series of 8 cards of Reggie Jackson being a baseball hero. Each one of these cards was a different type of pose, different type of card, different type of picture. There were about 7 or 8 other players who had the same thing that year with a series of 8 cards. It was a thing that Upper Deck did in 90. Now, if you look at this card, front and back, this is not a wax pack card. This is a digital print card. We had a debate last night of when the digital age began. Here's a breakaway on the power play for, look at that. Is that connecting, man? Nice goal. Flyers with the shorthanded, another shorty tonight. That is shorty yesterday, right? Or shorty on Thursday against Pittsburgh. They get a shorty tonight from Konechny on the breakaway. His second goal of the night. Flyers are up 2-1. Their 4th shorthanded goal of the season. Nice little turnover there, and he just goes all in and beats him short side, man. Nice play. 2 goals tonight for Konechny. That's really good to see. But anyway, back to Reggie Jackson. But yeah, this was, again, one of 8 cards of Reggie Jackson that was featured that year, and pretty cool looking card. Right now, I could find this card. Depends on, I've actually saw somebody trying to sell this card for $150 on eBay. I don't know if anybody would pay that, but I wouldn't, not for this card, for a 90 Upper Deck. And again, the digital debate continues is because this is a digital print. This is not a wax pack card. And we talked about when the actual digital age of baseball cards began, because I know Fleer was still doing wax packs in 1990 and 91. They were. Tops and Upper Deck were not. So when does the true age of digital cards begin is a debate we had a little bit last night. But this is a digital card from 1990 in Upper Deck. Baseball Heroes set, or Baseball Heroes insert, the Reggie Jackson series of 8. This is number 3 of 8. And again, I saw this card. Someone was trying to sell it for $150. I saw it for $5 legitimately. I saw it for 15. So, again, it all depends. And this is with every card. It all depends on the seller or what the buyer wants and how much you want a Reggie Jackson. And there are huge Reggie Jackson fans out there. And here it is in its physical form. That is not a live ink signature, by the way. This was part of the series. Each one of these cards has the digital embedded signature on it. So this is not a live signature, but again, there it is. Card 3 of 8. You can see there on the back. Pretty cool card, as I said. Anytime you run into a Hall of Fame card, and hopefully tomorrow at 6 o'clock, I'll have to, all the Chase Utley cards that I do have, which is not many. I only have like 2 or 3. But they'll be considered Hall of Fame baseball cards too. But Reggie Jackson, 1990 Upper Deck, Baseball Heroes, set of 8, card number 3 is our baseball card review of the night. Anywhere between $5 legitimately and about 50. Well, I'd say anywhere between $1 and $15. Someone I saw was trying to sell it for $150. I'm not buying that for $150, but somebody might. And that is your baseball card review of the night. And that, folks, is going to take me to the end here as I got to prepare for some post game. I'll be back when this thing goes 0 out in Vegas. Flyers are up 2-1 on powered by a Travis Konechny shorthanded breakaway goal just a few minutes ago as we get to the midway point of the third period. So I'll be back for the Code of the Ice a little bit later on. And then after that, I'll be back tomorrow night. Here's our schedule on the network for the rest of tonight and on into the rest of the week. Again, I'm back for Clear the Ice tomorrow to Pittsburgh Sports Tonight. Props, Locks, and Parlays returns, and I will be back at 9 o'clock, hopefully with great news about Chase Utley. So until I see you for the Clear the Ice program, you guys have a great rest of your night. See you in a couple hours, or probably about an hour, or actually less than an hour, with some Clear the Ice. Take care.